What's up, guys? Welcome to Snakes and Trails Season 3. This is the premiere. This is episode 1. And I'm out here in South Georgia for Indigo Days, an event with the Orianne Society, which is really special. Anyway, we're out looking for indigo snakes, eastern diamondbacks, pine snakes, and honestly, whatever we can find. But this first day is really cold and overcast, and it's been fairly rainy the last few nights, so we haven't had too much luck so far as finding anything goes. But of course, if we find anything, I'll keep you updated. I do have a cold though, so if I sound raspy, forgive me. I'm gonna try to overdub most of this with voiceovers so that you don't have to listen to my frog voice this whole time. But otherwise, let's cue up that intro.
So Indigo Days is all about finding indigo snakes. It's a really special opportunity that's put on by the Orianne Society in order to bring people out to look for snakes that are protected, and we're able to do so in a way that is legal by a scientific collection permit of the Orianne Society. Indigo snakes are really special animals, and I've wanted to see one for a long time. I actually grew up with my dad reading to me about them from a snake book called Snakes and Snake Hunting, written by Carl Caulfield. And the stories in that book are insane, but they've long since left me dreaming about finding indigo snakes. So indigo snakes are specialists. They live in gopher tortoise burrows, and a large part of the reason that they're protected is that their habitat is just being destroyed. It's really easy to develop over those gopher tortoise burrows. So after a good bit of looking around that day, our group didn't come across any indigo snakes, but the one snake we did get to see was a ribbon snake. It was really cool. One of the girls got to find it, and it was just really neat to be seeing something. Another really cool thing that we got to see was an indigo snake shed skin. I found it just as it was coming out of like a hole that would have been a gopher tortoise hole. But it was a shame not to be able to see the snake that this skin came from. But this picture can really just give you a good perspective of how big these snakes are. So after a long day of hiking around and not seeing any indigo snakes, it was time to drive through the sunset and head back for dinner. It was really cool just to hang out with a lot of the people that came to Indigo Days. I knew a lot of them from social media, and then there were a lot of really cool people that I'd never met before that I was excited to get the chance to meet. So after dinner, we went out and explored some of these ponds to look for frogs and salamanders. This in particular is a newt, an eastern newt. It was a lifer for me, the first eastern newt I had ever seen. Definitely a treat to see. I've always loved newts, and the first I'd ever seen were in California, so this was my first East Coast newt. It was funny, I heard one of the girls holler out when she said she thought she saw a salamander, and everyone was surprised when it turned out to be this beautiful tiger salamander. It was my first ever eastern tiger salamander, and it was full grown, and a full grown eastern tiger is much smaller than the barred tigers we have. The next morning we started our hike for the day, and at this point I was just feeling really sick. It was super hard to be nauseous and have a really bad cough while I was out here, but we still managed to come across a couple of critters. This first thing we saw was a slimy salamander, a pretty small individual, but I was lucky enough to see a few of these while I was in Georgia. As the day started to get warmer, we hiked more and more habitat, and I was kind of hoping to see an eastern diamondback in these logs, but finally, close to there, we found this beautiful eastern indigo. And by beautiful, I mean it was probably going to be beautiful if it wasn't in shed. But just look at those beautiful red cheeks. It was a really cool animal to see. And because we found him, it was time to go ahead and get some data on the snake. So we measured its weight and length. We also placed a pit tag in it, which was kind of cool to get to do and to be able to see. And then after a few photos, we were able to let it go. At the end of the day, Indigo Days was a total blast. It was amazing to be able to see an animal that I never thought in my lifetime I'd ever be able to see, that my dad used to read me bedtime stories about. So I'm so honored and thankful to the Orianne Society to have put on this event. And I'm also just thankful for all the people I got to spend time with there. Just a reminder, all of the animals that were handled in this video were handled under the scientific collecting permit of the Orianne Society. So thank you so much for watching this episode of Snakes and Trails. We'll see you next week.